could said to Ben Stokes, you could have two guys out of the Australian attack. Who you taking? He'd say, one Cummins, two Hazlewood. So he's basically got his wish. 5 fast bowlers is... We just don't use that sentence in cricket, do we? But that could and should be England's team, if they're brave enough, and I think they might be. Australia are gettable. They're vulnerable and they're gettable. They've got 2 key bowlers out. England, this is your chance.
Welcome to the Code Cricket Show. Friday is getting closer. The Ashes are almost here, and we're one-on-one with Crash Craddock today as the rest of our journalist suite get over to Perth to cover this first test. Crash, how excited are you for this test series coming up?
Oh, Lockie, excited beyond words. As we often say, we haven't had a close Ashes series in Australia in our lifetime. And I just feel this is it. I really do. This is the one where 5th day Sydney suddenly means something.
What have you made of kind of the build-up for this series? Because it feels like there is probably more optimism from the England side of things than usual, maybe a little bit more pessimism from the Aussie side because of a few injuries. How have you kind of felt this build-up's been compared to a few other series?
I feel that there's a great sense of the unknown. I've never seen England have so much optimism. I'm still not totally sure that it's founded on solid ground. As some of the writers have been saying, like, they haven't won a test here for 14 years. Never mind a series. So, and still underprepared bowlers rarely do well in Australia. But still, Australia are gettable. They're vulnerable and they're gettable. They've got 2 key bowlers out. England, this is your chance.
Let's go in straight to some discussion around the two teams. We really won't know exactly until the toss. I know the captains like to kind of announce it 24 hours out now. I miss that tradition of waiting until the toss. But starting with the Aussies, how do you think they're going to land? Is Weatherald in? Doggett looks like he's definitely in. Where are they going to land with Webster and Green?
I'm tipping Weatherall to play. I think it's about 80%. I can't slam it on the table. Certainly he hasn't been told, but I like that. I like Labuschagne at 3, Weatherall to open, Cam Green at 6. The minute Green said, I can bowl unlimited overs, was the moment I felt that Australia's side should go that way. Now, it doesn't mean that it has to, but it probably will, and I think it's the right way, Lachlan.
Now, Brendan Doggett, you got to chat with him on Saturday night. Obviously, sad news that Josh Hazlewood won't be playing in that first test after that hamstring strain. There was a bit of optimism that he would play. He won't, but it's great news. All signs pointing to Brendan Doggett becoming the 3rd Indigenous man to play Test cricket for Australia. And what was it like talking to him? What was your kind of realisation of what this man is, this 31-year-old who's about to play in the baggy green for the first time?
Do you know, Lockie, there was something that really struck me about that conversation. I have never, ever heard a more composed Test debutant, because basically from the time Hazlewood went down, about an hour before I spoke to Brendan, that was all, it confirmed that Brendan was in, let's face it. And he was so composed. Like, he just sort of said, mate, I'm ready for this. I'm 31, I've been building up for a decade. And the thing that helped him, Lockie, he's a carpenter by trade. Like, when he went to Adelaide, he went as much for life experience as he did to be their number 1 fast bowler. So he's got that lovely balanced perspective of a guy who knows what it's like to work from 9 to 5 as a chippy in Toowoomba and go out and play club cricket on a Saturday in Toowoomba, thinking you'll never go further. And that's what he did until his early 20s. So I like that sort of guy. They bring perspective and calmness. I've got a really good feeling about Doggett. I think he could shock everyone this series.
It's pretty stark looking at the numbers, and not Mitchell Starc, unfortunately, but since Josh Hazlewood debuted, Australia has only debuted 5 quicks in that time, in the past 11 years. You've got Chad Sayers, you've got Jai Richardson, you've got Michael Neser, and then, of course, Scott Boland, who'll be playing alongside Doggett. So Doggett becomes the 6th in about 11 years, and the majority of those guys have played 3 tests or fewer. Do you get the sense that Doggett could buck that trend and be a guy who does play multiple tests and forces his way into the team regularly?
Yes, I do, but his big opponent is not his rivals, it's injury. He's played 50 first-class games in about 10 years, so that's about 5 a year. So he's missed a lot of cricket. If he can stand, he's a greyhound. If he can stand up physically, he can be that anchor man. Remember, Lockie, He went to Adelaide thinking, I want to be the head of this attack. I want to win him a Sheffield Shield. And he did it. Now, that's the sort of mindset. The guy who takes over from Hazlewood, Starc, and Cummins, and they'll be placed, depart, with little gaps between them, but who will need to be someone with a fairly sturdy temperament. And he's got it. He has got that, Brendan Doggett.
Starc, Boland, Doggett. What do you make of that fast bowling lineup for the first test?
Yeah, it's solid, and to me, I've really got to watch on Mitch Starc because he's the anchor man here, and that's a big ask in a first Ashes test. We all remember him bowling Rory Burns' first ball at the Gabba. That was an epic start to an Ashes series. So I think this is a big series for Mitch, particularly that second test in Brisbane. He's the pink ball prince, isn't he? But if you were England, you wouldn't be quaking in your boots. You would think, gee, well, put it this way. Steve Harmson said to me last night, if you could send to Ben Stokes, you could have two guys out of the Australian attack. Who you taking? Who do you want out? He'd say, one Cummins, two Hazlewood. So he's basically got his wish.
Let's look at the England lineup because we're still a little bit of an unknown exactly what they're going to produce, how they're going to put their, I guess, fast bowlers all in the park at the same time. I get the sense that, Crash, you think playing 5 quicks for England could be an option for them.
Isn't that a remarkable sentence? 5 quicks. I mean, we say 4 quicks is the ultimate. 5 fast bowlers. I think that's England's option A. It really is. Because you think of it, Lockie, apparently behind closed doors, they've shaped up to the reality that Shoaib Bashir, the spinner, can't play in Perth. They've got real doubts about Will Jacks as a part-time offie in Perth and feel they'd be much better suited putting in a fast bowler like, say, Tongue, and you've got that means everyone can get by with an easy workload. That means you're not going to overbowl Stokes. That means you can carry Archer a little bit. That means you can take a gamble on Mark Wood. So 5 fast bowlers is we just don't use that sentence in cricket, do we? But that could and should be England's team if they're brave enough, and I think they might be.
Well, that England warm-up game against the Lions, there were a few fascinating storylines out of that. Obviously, Mark Wood's little injury scare, but he's good to go for that first test. Ben Stokes was starring with the ball. He took a heap of the wickets in that star-studded bowling attack in the first innings. But for you, I get the sense that Joe Root will be a very interesting watch. Obviously, there's so much pressure on him. He's basically the second best test batsman all time in terms of runs, wanting to chase down Sachin over the next couple of years, looking for that elusive century here in Australia. But there's a few nerves creeping into the former English skipper, isn't there?
Do you know, Lockie, this is a remarkable story. And it proves that cricket is the weirdest game of all, in that Joe Root has scored the second most runs in Test history. And yet, mates of mine in the England press corps said they've never seen him more nervous than when he walked out to bat in a trial game against the British Lions at Lilac Hill and duly failed. And it says to them that this whole Australia thing that hangs over Joe Root is still there. The fact that he hasn't scored a century here in 3 tours. Now, maybe he'll just blaze through it. Maybe he'll score 50 and then he'll get to 100. And when he does, he'll just bat and bat. But he's got to get through those early nerves, and they are there. They were there in that trial game. You think of it. You think of what he's done in his career, and he was very nervous in the trial game. So he's human. He's vulnerable. He's nervous in Australia, and that's his challenge. But I liked him in a podcast I've just heard with Mark Howard on the Howard Games just up today. Very interesting when he reveals that the greatest bowler he ever faced was, a drum roll, please, Ryan Harris from Australia. Amazing.
I mean, Rhino, we remember that 13-14 Ashes for Mitch Johnson's heroics, but some of the deliveries he had, that one over at the Wacker when it removed Alistair Cook's top bail, I mean, that was as good a fast bowling from a right-arm pacer as I think we've ever seen in Australia.
It was. And in those two, you're right, Johnson stole the thunder, but Harris averaged 19 in that series in Australia per wicket. He averaged 19 in consecutive Ashes series. And I got to say, Lockie, I love this. I do, because he's just been so underrated, Harris. He had the same figures as another underrated bowler, Bruce Reid. Same number of wickets, same number of tests, very similar average. And he was such a skillful player. And I love the fact that seeing an unsung hero get a rap, and he's now coaching South Australia. And those young South Australian fast bowlers will watch our podcast. They'll listen to Mark Howard's. They'll read the story. They'll think, "Gee, was he that good?" Well, the answer is he was. When a group of players retired, Darren Lehman was asked, "Which did you miss most?" And he just, in a millisecond, he said, "Oh, Ryan Harris, of course."
Those battles between Harris and Dale Steyn in some of those South Africa tests were some of the best I think we've ever seen. And I think we could go on all day talking about Ryan Harris. But for Joe Root, the fact that there's no Cummins and there's no Hazlewood, I think they're the two Aussie bowlers who have dismissed him essentially the most in the past decade. How big a bonus is that if he can, as you said, get a century early in the series in Perth? I mean, we saw what Alistair Cook did out here in sort of that 2010-2011 series when he scored best part of 750, 800 runs. Could Root do something similar if he gets that fast start over at Perth?
Yeah, look, fast start, you said it. It's all about getting this bogey out of the road early. I think pressure will build quickly if he has a bad first test. He, Australia's plan A to Root, they love the fact that, like a lot of Northern English batsmen, he has the glide outside off stump. Works beautifully in England, but in Australia, when the ball gets up here, that's going to third slip, So that's fascinating. You watch for it on the first morning. Watch for him trying to bait him and say, "Have a little nudge there, Joe." So it is. Look. Every player has a soft spot in their career. Dennis Lilly, for all his greatness, barely toured the subcontinent. Dougie Walters struggled in England. Ricky Ponting struggled in India. So, and Root averages 35 in Australia. It's not 20. So, but he needs that century. It's just sort of the golden stamp on his passport, isn't it?
Definitely. Crash, your stories and headlines are set to dominate this summer. We saw them last series against India out here. Sam Constas was the big X factor moment of the series. It got Kohli rattled. We saw what happened in the MCG. He became the number one story by the time Sydney rolled around. Give us your prediction. What's going to be our Sam Constas moment this summer?
I reckon that's really easy to identify. It's Harry Brook's lid bursting off the saucepan. And I'm not even sure what's going to come out, but it'll happen in Perth and it'll happen when they bat. All the English journos have been saying this. Brook's been practicing like cavalier, dancing down the wicket. We saw it in the trial game. He just went, into full kamikaze mode. And it's something to behold. And there's a couple of Harry Brooks. He averages 9 in Australia in all sorts of cricket, but he averages 80 overseas in tests. So which one will step forward, I don't know. But I reckon he's going to try and snap the chains viciously with a chainsaw. Like he's coming for Australia at 1,000 miles an hour, Harry Brook. It is the one moment where Australian fans, if you were sitting at home and a wicket falls and someone says, "Who's your next?" Oh, Harry Brook. Sit down, listen, watch. It'll be the best entertainment of the series, Lachlan.
Bazball is here. We're finally going to see it. I cannot wait. And Crash, you were lucky enough to be there at the CODE cricket launch in Melbourne on Tuesday night, getting ready for this series, sharing the panel with some of the biggest names in the sport. I mean, can you tell us some of the stories that you heard there and what's getting people excited for this series?
Well, it was just a real potpourri of stuff of, Adam Gilchrist reflecting on his 100 in Perth, 59 balls, Ashes 100, and how he wanted to retire early in that test after getting out to Monty Panesar in the first innings, Lockie, and saying to him, promising himself, if I ever face Panazar again, I'm going into full attack mode, which he did in the second innings. One of the great moments. And then there was offbeat moments at the launch when Peter Siddle, Johnny Hastings, the Victorian seamer, who in a recent Legends game in England had a 18 ball over, including 13 wides, and who was fielding at mid-off? Peter Siddle, who was a guest at our launch. And the footage is great of the ever smiling Peter Siddle, who smiles his way through life. Like he's given the ball back to Hastings. First 2 wides, oh mate, that's okay. We've all done that. Third wide, oh okay. Fourth wide, yeah, all right. Just doesn't cricket throw up some crazy, hazy stories, Lockie? I love them all, and there'll be plenty more this summer. And I also, Tyler Lewis was going around the room getting quotes about that extraordinary story, Lockie, about the Barmy Army getting mass loads of tickets for Bay 13 at the MCG.
That feels sacrilege in all the ways. Those days of whether it was Merv, whether it was Warney, just doing their stretches, ramping the crowd up. And I mean, some of the scenes we've seen in front of Bay 13 and the Aussie crowds that get so vocal, we saw them absolutely love Sam Constas last year. And now we're going to be seeing the white and red in there. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Crash?
Well, my thoughts replicate those. I was with Tyler when he approached Adam Gilchrist, and Gilly's first words were, "What? That's un-Australian." And Flem said, "What? I feel sick." And then they moderated their responses, but the first ones were telling. And Gilly actually looked around as if to say, "What? Is that right? Oh, I don't like it. I just think that's a sacred spiritual ground for Australia, that the Bay 13. It's where Merv Hughes used to own it. It's where Australia's players look to. It's where Warney wants it to go down and calm them down, when they were creating a bit of a fuss. So I was surprised they did it. And I'm looking for a reason to think what might have been a good idea. I can't find one. I think it's a bad idea. I think that should always be Australia's little, what would you call it, sacred place.
While we're on the topic of the Barmy Army, Crash, I imagine you've had run-ins, you've had memories of them over the years. Is there a Barmy Army memory that sticks out? Because we're going to be seeing a lot of them come to our shores this summer and follow all 5 tests around. What does the Barmy Army mean to you, having covered them for so long?
I remember the Barmy Army once, they came together in about 1994, and I remember once they won a test in Adelaide, England won, and they said you cannot, not allowed on the ground, but they invaded the ground, and I just thought it was the most magnificent sight I've ever seen in cricket, Lockie. Even though Australia lost a test, it was like the French Revolution storming the barricades. There was people with flags and all that, and I thought, long live cricket, because this is the spirit of the whole thing, and I just thought, I just, they're barking mad, half of them, and they taunted Mitchell Johnson about he bowls at left, he bowls at right, he bowls a lot of shite, but and they got to him too, but they can unsettle you, but there's also a dignified presence to them. They were shattered by Shane Warne's death, and I know they often pay tribute to him, and it's really, I love what they bring to the game. I really do. To me, we've always had this saying up here, Lockie, unless you've got a mate who's an English sports fan, you haven't lived, because it's so much banter.
Well, if they finally get that win out here in Australia, I mean, I feel like we're going to see them take to the pitch again, wherever it might be this summer. But to wrap up, Crash, Friday's almost here. Let's get your predictions for the series. Let's run through them. First of all, before we go to the important one, the scoreline of the series, who have you got to score the most runs this series?
I've got a feeling Ruth will score the most runs, because I think he'll have an innings where enough will never be enough, where it won't be 100, it'll be 192. He'll get into a mode and think this is for the last 10 years. So I do think that, and I think Smith will have a really good series too. I just like the way he's batting and thinking about his cricket at the moment.
Most wickets?
I've just got a feeling, against all expectations, that Nathan Lyon will have and it won't be spectacular. It'll be chisel stuff. It'll be 2-3, 2-3, and then 5 but he bowls very well in Perth. He's got a bowling average of 20 runs per wicket in Perth. He will start well. I think their attack will rotate around him, but I think he'll do well. And I always think back to that lovely quote from Stuart Broad, who said, every series we do our research, we talk about their quicks, and our last sentence is, and of course, Nathan Lyon. He said, well, he's better than that. We never give him the respect he deserves, ever.
I mean, Nathan could overtake Glenn McGrath in Perth as well, which is exciting to see for most test wickets for Australia. And player of the series, Crash, who's going to take that on out? Is it going to be one of the batters? Is it going to be one of the bowlers?
I can see someone like, I like when Smith's captain, he bats well, and I think he will really challenge for that, because I think Australia will win the series, and that's why I said Root might get most runs, Smith player of the series. Yeah, so that's why Steve Smith is an interesting character now. There's been a lot of different game plans tried to him, but when he's captain, he often looks deep within himself and he finds a special Vader form. I can see it happening now.
Let's get the final say, Crash. You said Australia's going to win the series. What's the score going to be?
I've got Australia 3-2 because Bazball does not do draws. If there's no major weather interruptions, there will be no draw in this series. England will go hard and they will go home. And hey, all right, here's two predictions. England will lose a test and completely make a mess of it from a near impregnable position by going too hard. And England will win a test when they look no chance by going hard again. They will shock us all by reeling in 342 on the last day. It'll be a spectacular victory amongst England's victories, their 2 wins, and a damn bustingly average defeat when they go pop. So that's the joy of them. I like the way they play their cricket, Lockie. It's so easy to watch.
Well, that's how Crash thinks this series is going to unfold, and we can't wait for the Ashes to start. Dan Cherney and Ben Horn will be in Perth, so make sure you subscribe to Code Sports for all your Ashes coverage. We still have the $49 for 12 month subscription offer. The link is in the description.